Good morrow, fellow travelers. Welcome to the Fantasy Folk, where we discuss all things in the fantasy genre, from books and games to television and film. My name is Jordan Wiegand, and with me as my traveling companion down these fantastical roads is Ron. How are you today, Ron?
I'm doing great, man. I'm having a bit of Rings of Powers withdrawals this week,
Yeah.
admittedly, but but besides from that, I'm doing great. We've got a super fun show today and a really awesome guest with us as well.
Yeah, go ahead and welcome our guest, Ron.
I guess I should probably
Yeah.
introduce him. So he is the co-host of the Sons of Mjolnir podcast, as well as a few different shows under the Agents of Fandom banner, like Comic Corner and Fellowship of Fandom, which they were gracious enough to have me on a few weeks ago. And most recently, now a writer for the CBM team as well. Congratulations on that, by the way. Y'all know him on Twitter as Fat Thor. He is our buddy TJ. TJ, how you doing, bro?
I am doing fantastic, and thank you so much for the kind words. What an introduction. But I'm just so honored to be here. Obviously, I talk so much about comic books and stuff like that, and I rarely get an opportunity to talk about my other love, which is fantasy. So I'm super excited to come nerd out with y'all all about fantasy, and it's just going to be such a fun time. Thanks so much for having me on.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I have a quick question for you, TJ. For a lot of my podcasts, I like to ask questions about like favorite stuff. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but just like, what is like your favorite fantasy world? As we're going to be like setting it up for the listeners here as well, we will be mashing two fantasy worlds together in this episode. But like, what got you into fantasy, and like, kind of what is that favorite fantasy world?
I mean, I love all types of fantasy, but it has to be Lord of the Rings for sure. I mean, classic answer, right? But I mean, I remember seeing the movie when I was just a wee young little lad, and I just have loved it ever since. I have devoured every Lord of the Rings thing I possibly could. And while I love like the Game of Thrones, Westeros, all that, I just feel like there's not a world as well crafted and like enthralling as Middle Earth. And that's just what keeps me coming back over and over again. So that's really where the love started and still lives today.
Nice. Yeah, there's a reason it's the classic answer, right? Because it's just
Hmm.
such an amazing world to literally get lost in. Like my
He
favorite,
he set the stage too. Like he created modern fantasy. J.R.R. Tolkien.
very much so, very
Yeah.
much so. It's like just kind of what we were talking about in our intro episode way back about the coolest part about these worlds is that you can be looking at a map and just point anywhere and probably find hundreds and thousands of years worth of lore based on these places. They're so meticulously crafted, and it's a big part of what keeps us coming back. And nobody did it better than Tolkien. So
Yeah, he actually Lord of the Rings, at least from my understanding, it actually like gave fantasy, like made fantasy an actual genre. Like before
Yeah.
that, there was just kind of you had fantasy stories, dwarves, stuff like that, but it wasn't really like centralized as one thing. And then Tolkien came
yeah,
along, it became so popular. They're like, oh, these other books actually fit into this, and like you said, basically didn't invent fantasy, but kind of like you said, modern fantasy. But that's the end of my
He's like
Tolkien
the
spiel.
grandpappy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the grandpappy of it. I would say he's the reason why we have like D&D, like having those classes of elves and dwarves all in under one roof, and like a lot of those modern interpretations of those characters are because of him, orcs and stuff like that. So, um, no, if you can't tell, it is my favorite as well. The um, world of Middle Earth, I think, is just so rich, and I've been getting back into it. I have the Andy Serkis read Silmarillion
Dude,
audiobook.
yes.
So I'm
So
starting to
good.
listen to that. Um, and yeah, I think I also have The Hobbit of Andy Serkis read as well, which I think is great. And I'm guessing he uses his Gollum voice when he gets to Gollum, because I feel like that's a slam dunk, right?
Yeah. It's
I hope
But
he
so
reads I
good.
hope he reads the whole thing in the Gollum voice.
Yeah, just the entire thing.
so what people can tell by the title of the video and the title of the podcast is that we are creating a Fellowship of the Ring with Westeros characters as if they were either in Middle Earth or if the ring was in Westeros. I guess however you want to picture that in your mind. And this idea came to me because we were thinking of ways to transition from our Rings of Power coverage to some of the Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon coverage that we're going to be doing on this podcast afterwards. And I think I saw one of those things going around where, like where people say, pick something from each row and create like your Hand of the King and stuff like that. But I was like, what if we just took those characters and fit them as I don't even know how I came up with it. It was just like, let's do a fellowship of it. And I was like, that's really fun because it's like, the world of Tolkien is so different from the George R. R. Martin world. So who do you trust with the ring? Who do you trust in it? Like, there's those type of questions that I think really sets up interesting dynamics when we're creating our fellowship, because a lot of these characters are probably easily corruptible, even more so than the Lord of the Rings characters. So I guess I'll set the stage for how everyone is, how we're going to structure this podcast. So we're each going to go one by one, listing one of our 9 fellowship members. I put them in certain roles like ring bearer or Aragorn role. And I don't mean like it's essentially one for one in what that role means for me. Some of it is like their dynamics with certain characters are going to decide what role they fit into. Some people may have just gone, okay, wizard role instead of Gandalf. While I looked at Gandalf's role as maybe more mentor, right? So like, I think there'll be really fun dynamics between our 3 fellowships. Also for the listeners, so it's not repetitive, if I say I have Jon Snow in my fellowship and somebody else has Jon Snow in their fellowship, we will all discuss Jon Snow at that moment, and that person can say what role they had him in. So that way we're not getting 30 minutes later and then, oh yeah, we're re-talking Jon Snow.
Yeah.
Anything else I should set up before we kind of get into it?
No, I think you pretty much laid out the parameters pretty good there.
We left it pretty open. I felt like I wanted to see what strategy people would bring, so I wanted to leave this fairly open.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. So it's one of those topics that you can go in so many different directions with it that it almost would have been a bit of an injustice to try to put like too tight of parameters around it. It's so yeah. Let's just, without further ado, let's get into it.
All right, so I'm gonna start with my ring bearer, and then I think we should all go ring bearer, and then we'll just fluff it out from there. But for my ring bearer, I was like, who can I really trust? There's not a lot of people. And I was debating between 2 people. I was debating between Ned Stark and Jon Snow. I actually went with Jon Snow as my ring bearer. I felt like he has like the best qualities of Ned, and he also has other qualities that I think people shown that they will do things for Jon. So I could see 9 people or 8 other people rallying around Jon and helping him on this quest. If you remove the rest of the men of the wall that ended up killing him. But like, there are certain subsets of people that were really hardcore Jon fans. So that is who I have as my ring bearer. And then I'll go to, I guess if anybody else has Jon Snow in their fellowship, feel free to speak or forever hold your peace.
I do not. TJ, do you?
I do not either.
No, wow.
I really honestly, I really tried to like think outside the box on this one. I like tried to purposely avoid like the big like Jon Snow type characters. But I mean, I love your reasoning though, Jordan. I mean, like Jon Snow is a very like obvious pick. That was my first person I came up with in my head for the ring bearer. So, like you said, I think that's a great pick.
I was in the exact same conundrum as you, Jordan. It's funny because like after I didn't pick Jon Snow, and it'll kind of lead into what my pick was here. It was one of those things where it's like, I don't want to just throw him on the team to say I have Jon Snow on my squad. It almost would have felt like a little forced to just try to throw him at the end of the team. I do think he's a great ring bearer, the reason that I went with Ned myself personally, and then I'll get into why I chose him. But the reason I didn't choose John is just because he's got a little bit of that young hard-headedness still in him. You know what I mean? That can kind of cloud his judgment sometimes, and make him not always make the best choice. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Here you didn't think about Ron though. John's hair is like Frodo's hair. So I mean, like this also
he's got
fits.
the flow. He's got the flow.
The like half Jerry curl.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a great pick. But yeah, I went with Ned just because I think he's a little older, wiser,
and John has his head too. So I mean that helps.
Yeah, there is that. Yeah, I'm just taking Ned's head. I'm not taking.
Just the head.
Put the ring in his mouth and like.
He's
like the dude from God of War when you have the little like head on your belt.
On the belt. Yeah.
I love both those picks.
Yeah.
Ned Stark, obviously, again, like very strong pick. One of the most pure of heart people in Game of Thrones. But like that's what makes this so fun and interesting, though, because in my opinion, that's like one of the big differences between Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings. Is in Game of Thrones, everybody is morally gray. Like no one is outright good or bad. Yeah. But if you're gonna get close to that, I mean, Ned Stark's as close as you probably could get. For mine, like I said, I tried to think out of the box here, fellas, and to me, I really thought about like what does the ring bearer mean, and especially like Frodo's case. And to me, it's about the person that doesn't have power ends up like having the power to defeat the big evil, right? And it's like someone you wouldn't expect to, be able to change things, right? So for mine, I chose Podrick, Tyrion's whatever you call like sword guy. I thought Podrick would be a good pick because he's a person who doesn't know power. He doesn't know like what the like corruption of power really is. And I just feel like he's just a sweet old guy, right? Like he's a sweet young lad. And I think he just has a pure heart. And I think the ring obviously the ring ultimately corrupts everybody, but it would work a little slower on him. So that was my pick.
So it's really funny. I have Podrick in mine as well. And I thought that it was he's literally the last member of my team, and I'll tell you why in a second. And I almost feel bad now because it's way less of a role than TJ has him in. But TJ, you're spot on with that. He's sort of the unassuming one, right? You know what I mean? The last one you'd expect to wear it, which is why he should wear it, sort of thing. I have him on my team because he's a really good squire and he's a really good singer. And at the end of the day, you know what? We need some entertainment on this long-ass journey.
That is true. He's got the pipes, those golden pipes.
We need some Jenny of Oldstones on those nights where the rain's coming down and the morale is low and we need a little boost. Have Podrick fire up those pipes for you.
It's funny you said that. I had Ed Sheeran character from Game of Thrones on mine. No, I have to reverse real quick because I do have Ned Stark. So I just wanted to really quickly speak about him. I do not have Podrick, so I did have Ned, and I put him in what I called the Aragorn role. Mm-hmm. So in my version of the Fellowship, he is I liken him in Game of Thrones to Aragorn in Lord of the Rings, which is nice for just for the fact of in Lord of the Rings, when he's Boromir, he plays like a total 180 of Ned Stark.
Yeah.
So being able to have Sean Bean play a role that is the Aragorn role, and if you also think about it in the sense of Boromir was another son of Gondor, like type of thing, and was somebody that was at this end of the day trying to do good, but failed and got corrupted. Having him now in the role of the Aragorn role, he's like finally fulfilling what he didn't get to do. And he'll survive if he was the Aragorn role. So it feels pretty good for Sean Bean in that sense. But also he is like, Aragorn was like the protector and a mentor to Frodo. And that's what Ned was to Jon. He kind of took Jon in. Spoilers for Game of Thrones. That's not actually his bastard son, but like he took him under his wing and instilled that stuff that made Jon what I thought a good ring bearer. So just to get Ned Stark out of the way on this podcast, I had him in the Aragorn role.
Nice.
Good stuff. For my second role of what I was going to do, I have the Samwise Gamgee role here. And who else but Samwell, being the Samwise of my fellowship. He's that, I always liken him to Samwise because of how just like attached to Jon he was. And I feel like him by Jon's side. And if anything needs to happen where Sam takes the ring like Samwise had to do at certain times or make sure Jon's on the right path, Sam will do that. So I have Samwell in my Samwise role.
Nice. I have Samwell on my team as well, but the role I have him in is, every party needs a healer, quote unquote, right? So I was thinking of the, all the different maesters, and I'm like, Maester Lewin, he's a little too old. Oh wow, I'm having a total brain fart here. Qyburn. I was gonna say Chimere, wrong show. Qyburn, like same thing. He's a little too old, and he's into some other kind of weird shit. So I don't know if I want him out there. So I just I think the best choice of them is Samwell. He's also just a good vibes guy. Let's be honest. Sam's another one of the sort of unassuming kind of types. And I'll be honest with you, it'll just be nice to have somebody else at the back of the group, like kind of falling behind and just being like, oh, we'll catch up with you guys. As a big guy myself, I respect that.
100%.
Another good parallel between like Samwise and Samwell as well that I was just thinking is like Samwise is the one that writes the book at the end of Lord of the Rings, and Samwell writes the Song of Ice and Fire. So that's pretty cool. Nice. But yeah, he has good vibes. He has good vibes.
Yeah, Sam's my favorite character, honestly. I mean, I love a lot of characters, but Sam takes the cake for me.
He's and George has said a few times that Sam is very much sort of a stand-in character for him almost. That again, not to keep using the word unassuming, but just kind of the one that everybody picks on and everything, and then just to see him kind of get his journey the way that all that went, killing the White Walker and getting the girl at the end of the day, sort of thing. I love Sam.
He's very much kind of like the point of view character, I feel like, in at least the show, because like he's kind of like you said, he's like George. He's kind of like he's us, like he's the regular dude thrown into extreme circumstances and like has to step up. So yeah, I love Sam, but unfortunately, I actually don't have Sam on my team.
That is fair. Why don't you give us your next one that you want? Just anyone else.
I would say anyone, or should I do? I didn't really do like Sam, Merry, and Pippin. I just did 3 companions, so they're like not in any specific order. But I'll just do one of those. So for one of my 3 companions, I chose Hodor. I thought Hodor would be again for me. Merry, Pippin, and obviously Sam plays like a more important role in like supporting Frodo, like you guys said. But I just feel like all 3 of them kind of just play the role of again the more smaller characters that have major impacts, right? And so I thought Hodor would be a good one because he is another character in Game of Thrones that's kind of people don't really take much stock into. He says one word, but in the end we find out like he plays a very pivotal role with Bran and the 3-eyed raven and all that. So that's why I picked Hodor.
And you'll also have a guy that'll hold the door for you wherever you go. I mean
in the Mines of Moria, that will come in handy for sure.
Yeah.
I'm just picturing in the Fellowship that scene where like
they're like trying to get through the door in the cave with the cave troll, and he's like blocking it now.
Yes. Or like they're like hiding from the Nazgul, and he's just Hodor. No, I love Hodor though. It's a great addition to the squad for sure. It's not on mine, but
yeah, I don't have him either.
He was one of the first ones out. So I'll throw another one of mine out here. So the way that I have the ring bearer, I have two that I considered smarts. I've got three fighters, an archer, and then I mentioned Pod and Sam as well as the singer slash entertainment and the healing. But I'll throw another one of my smarts guys out there because I picked one that's more of a talking to people kind of city smarts kind of character, and another one that's more of the on the road like let me think. I'm trying to think of how exactly to put it. But I think you'll know what I'm getting at when I just tell you the character. Sir Davos Seaworth is one of my smarts guys here. I think he's very much the knows how to read people type. Knows usually what the right decision is, even the tough ones. I love Davos. I think if Stannis had just listened to him a little more, things probably wouldn't have ended up for him how they ended up, at least in the show. I'm working my way through the books right now, and from what everybody tells me, Stannis' story is vastly different in the books than it is in the show. So I'm super stoked to see where it goes. I'm already more interested in it in the book than I was in the show. But I say all that to say I love me some Davos, man. So had to have him on my squad.
Shout out the Pickle Knight.
The Onion Knight.
Yeah, Onion Knight. I don't know why I said pickle.
I don't have Davos. I debated him, but I think he fits into the Numenor if we're putting him in Rings of Power. Like I feel like he would be a great Numenor character in that show.
Yes, he would. That's a great comp. He would.
Although
nobody would listen to him anyway, just like in fucking
exactly. He would be like the Elendil role.
Yeah.
I didn't have Davos, but I considered him. But I actually considered him for like the dwarf role of my squad, like the role that Gimli would play. But I chose someone else for that role. So when we get there, I'll shout out. So Davos is officially not on my list, but love me the Onion Knight.
So good.
I'll go with my Gimli role. And I did not pick this guy because he's also short, but I have Tyrion in the Gimli role because of who I'm going to have in the Legolas role. So I feel like I have I wanted to keep the unlikely friendship aspect of Gimli and Legolas with these characters. And Tyrion is fitting into that Gimli role. So he doesn't really fit it in the sense of being like a dwarf wielding, like axe wielding dwarf type of thing. But Tyrion has had an axe before. But also, he will fill a role on my team where he has some big strategy with battles, and he'll also be a little mischievous. I ultimately picked Tyrion because I don't think he is more eligible to be corrupted than the rest of my team so far, but I think Tyrion is the one Lannister that wouldn't really get corrupted, so I feel like I had to put him on here, and he's my favorite like Game of Thrones character, so I wanted to fit him in some sort of role here.
Nice. I have him on my squad as well. He's my other smarts guy. Whereas Davos will play the role of that more street smarts, kind of, reading people and stuff. Tyrion's the one with the big brain who knows, this is so-and-so city. This is, the one that can kind of be the knowledge of the group. I think he's probably the best at that in Westeros. So I had to throw him on my team as well. I love him.
Yeah, I have Tyrion on my team as well. I again not in any specific order, but I mean, who doesn't love Tyrion, right? You got to include him on the squad somehow. But I had him as one of my three companions, and basically for a lot of the same reasons you guys said. He's smart, tactical, and I could totally. I mean, he kind of does play. Very similar role in Game of Thrones where like I can see him playing that role of like Merry or Pippin. Like he would be a huge asset in Rohan. Like with King Theoden and Grey Worm, like that's the guy you want. Like, so I could totally see him again making some massive kind of changes and plays in the Fellowship. Again, being kind of a more unassumed someone who people underestimate, which again is a common theme for Tyrion in Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm. Man, that is a good. I'm just trying. I'm picturing what the machinations of that would look like. Him in that Rohan role. That would be really cool. Yeah, I love Tyrion, man. It's what we do. We take Tyrion and we know things.
It's one of my favorite passages from the book. I haven't read all the Game of Thrones books, but from the first Game of Thrones book, it's the scene with him and Jon Snow outside of Winterfell. And I don't remember the
Yeah.
exact line, but George says something along the lines of like, and as Tyrion walked through the doorway, his shadow loomed over the courtyard, and in that moment, he was taller than any king or something. I was like, damn, that's good, man.
Yep.
Like, that's a freaking bar.
Yep. It really is. That I love those interactions between them too, and when they go together to the wall too.
Mhm.
I love the Tyrion and Jon interactions,
And it works out for me too, because I have Jon as the ring bearer, so Tyrion has that relationship with him where maybe he wouldn't even think about betraying him anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
It all fits.
Love it. All right. Is it TJ?
Yeah.
Is it me or TJ? I forget. We're just kind of going off the cuff. Whatever.
Yeah, just go, Ron. Yeah, just go.
All right. So, I'm actually, my list is getting low here. I've given my ring bearer Tyrion, Davos, Podrick, and Samwell. We'll get into my fighters now. The fighters that I picked, I didn't want your more classically trained, like knights, like your Robb Starks or somebody like that. I wanted fighters who aren't evil or anything like that, but who aren't afraid to, maybe throw some dirt in the eye in a scrap. The ones who know that a fight is a fight. It's not, it's not this big honorable thing. It's about getting out alive at the end of the day and getting this ring to Mordor. So because of that, the first one that I chose was Bronn of the Blackwater. He's just an absolute G with the sword. At the same time, though, not afraid to sweep your leg out from underneath you and shank you a little bit. And he's funny as hell. He would be a little bit of comedic relief in there. Him and Pod's interactions were great in the show, and I'd imagine it would provide some comic relief to my fellowship here. So had to get Bronn.
He's not on my list. I did debate him, but I was a little worried about having a sellsword on my team with the ring. So
that is true.
Nixed him.
Not thinking that. He's weird though. He's like
sort of loyal. Yeah.
In his own weird way. Yeah, he's loyal and honorable, like at least to the point where I don't think he would just take off in the middle of the night with the ring. I think he would be okay. Especially with Ned having that thing around his finger, it would be a quite the fight to get it off him.
All right, TJ, if you wanted to share one.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't realize it was my turn. So for my warrior role, I kind of went with the similar thought process of Ron here. And for mine, I kind of envisioned like this is like Boromir's role in my mind. Mm-hmm. And so I picked Tormund. The wildling Tormund. I felt like Tormund is, impulsive. He's kind of wild, but at the same time, I think he does have a good heart. Same with Boromir. Again, like while Boromir does get corrupted, he does have a good heart, at least in the start. So that's who I saw as my warrior. And yeah, that's who I had. I also considered like Robb and, Jon Snow as well. But yeah, I ultimately went with Tormund for that kind of veracity.
Love it. Love Tormund. Is the big woman here?
Dude, yes.
Tormund's the man, dude. Love it. He isn't on my squad, but he's another one of those that was like first one out. Like, they do the NCAA tournament, like first four out. He was definitely part of those four for sure.
Yeah, I thought of him, but I could not fit him into my approach, which I'll share next here. My Legolas role. So I said I wanted him to kind of have that unlikely friendship with Tyrion. But also Legolas is a really cool fighter. So I have Oberyn Martell as my Legolas role.
Love it. That's a good one.
Technically a sellsword, I think, but also he he becomes the champion for Tyrion, so I thought that would be cool. He's a really cool fighter, which would fit that Legolas role,
Mhm.
and play off that dynamic with Tyrion. So,
Mm.
their unlikely friendship. I could picture Tyrion and Oberyn maybe having some back and forth, counting how many orcs they're killing at Helm's Deep here. So,
Yeah. Hopefully Gregor Clegane is not in the path. Then it might be
he didn't make the
a little
jump to
tough.
Middle Earth. He's still over in Westeros.
Still in King's
Fuck! I
Landing.
thought I got rid of this guy. One of the it's still to this day that scene. I just love Oberyn, by the way. It's a great pick to your team. But that scene is still one that like there's a lot of days where if I'm watching it, I just skip that one individual part. It's like I don't know if I need to see that today. A man getting his fucking skull caved in
Yeah, it's
through his
brutal,
eyeballs.
dude.
It's just like, oh god, yeah. They spare no expense in the gore
Ugh,
department of
what a
that scene, and it definitely
what a time! What a time!
it's the best. All right, Jord. Or no, you just went. It's me.
Yeah.
Here. All right, so there's how many here that
I have 4
Three.
left. I don't know how many everybody else has, but
I have
think
3.
TJ probably has a good amount because he didn't have a lot that were on our list. So, yeah,
True,
we're probably
true.
all around 3 to 4.
I think I have 4.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Cool. So my second fighter, just kind of in keeping with that same theme that I referenced for Braun, I'm going Arya. Bring her and Needle over to the squad.
Mm-hmm.
The best thing about her too is that unless you know Arya, she's very easy to take lightly. She's just looks like a girl. You know what I mean? Not very well off girl, as a matter of fact. She's usually dirty and just the hair's all over the place, and it's just. But looks can be deceiving, and she is very much sort of the poster child for that. I love Arya. Some days I say she's my favorite character. Other days, there's others that I throw. I just love Game of Thrones so much that it's tough to pinpoint who my actual favorite is. But Arya is an easy top 3, and I had to include her on my team.
I have her too. I have her in my Mary role, because of just the fact that she's little.
Could not be more opposites.
She's little. Mary has some kills. Mary has some kills. But I took it as more of like a little unassuming, smaller person that is able to rack up some kills.
Mm-hmm. I had her
also
in this timeline.
Nice.
In this timeline, Ned's not dead, so she hasn't really had to go full like faceless man. In my canon universe of this, so I have her as that, but I do think she would still be able to have Needle and rack up some kills. So I have her as my Mary role.
Yeah, I had her pretty much exact same as you, Jordan. One of the 3 companions. Again, no specific order, but again, same reason. Someone who's unassuming, who doesn't really have much power, but takes control and gives themselves power. And speaking of Mary, though, just very quickly, I want to shout out because this is one of my just favorite fun facts of Lord of the Rings for people out there who maybe don't know this. But actually, so in the Return of the King book and movie, what's her face? So she kills the Witch King, right? She kills the Witch King actually with
Éowyn, yeah.
Éowyn. Thank you. She kills the Witch King with Mary's sword. She grabs Mary's sword off the ground, and the reason why that's important is because that sword is actually from the Dunedain back in the day and was specifically made to fight the Witch King and his forces. So that's why the sword makes him like crumble up and like destroys him completely, because it was from Mary's sword.
Yeah.
And I just think that's a very cool detail they don't go into in the movies. But again, showing like a small person, no power, can have massive change against, evil.
You can kind of liken it to when Arya takes out the Night King.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So
dude, the parallels are all
of,
there.
Yeah.
With the Valyrian steel dagger. I wonder why they didn't include that in the movies. I wonder if it was just like, we don't want to get bogged down with all these swords.
Well,
obviously they had everything.
So in the books, when they get the swords, that's in the chapter of the Burrow Downs, right before they meet Tom Bombadil. and they
Mhm.
Yep.
didn't do any of that in the movie. So they're like, well,
Mm.
how do we explain the importance of this sword without having, you know what I mean? So they're like,
With
if you know,
Bombadil
you
not
know.
even there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shout out Tom.
Let me
Is it
see.
my turn?
Tommy B.
Am I up on my pick?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can pick
Yep.
one.
Yes, sir.
So I want to do my elf role, like or like you said, like archer. I didn't think of it as archer. I more so thought of it as like not necessarily magic, but kind of, mystical, if you would, because we
Yeah.
know, like in Game of Thrones, magic isn't really a thing, or at least anymore. It's kind of ambiguous how magic works. But so for my elf or mystical character, I chose a Children of the Forest. I don't know like any of their specific
Ooh.
names, but I thought that fit really, because the elves in Lord of the Rings are very in tune with nature. They love all things
Yeah.
that grow and like come from the earth. So I thought the Children of the Forest would fit that very well. But they also can fight. They also can, they have like healing abilities. So that's who. Again, I don't think there's like they have specific names of any one of them. So just any of the Children of the Forest, I'll take.
Mhm. Man, that's a great pick. I wish I had thought of that because it could
That's
have
why I
filled my
asked
healer role,
you.
and they have those. Huh?
Sorry, I was just gonna say that's why I asked you in the text. I was like, "Can we do like the entire timeline, or are we just sticking to the Song of Ice and Fire?" Because I was like, I need one of these Children of the Forest on my team.
Yeah, no, it's a great pick. They have those like weird, like magic grenades. I don't even know what you'd call them, but the ones that they were throwing at the whites when they were in the tree with the 3-eyed raven and all that stuff. So that's a great pick. I wish I had thought of that, man. Damn it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I did not even think of them. I guess because I wasn't thinking of because like you said, not a lot of them have names, right? You can name
Mhm.
one if you want. If you want to name one like Tom or something.
Yeah, George.
Yeah, sure.
Fucking
Fred,
Fred, the child of the forest.
Fred
He
the
is.
Forest Child.
So George, when you make the graphic for this showing all of our fellowships, just like get a hat that says Fred and just put it right on top of it.
Oh, I was thinking like Fred Flintstone and then put like leaves around it.
There you go. All right, George.
Okay. I got my Gandalf role here. Gandalf. My
Gandalf.
my
Gandalf.
Gandalf role is actually somebody you mentioned before, Ron, but you didn't put him on your team, I don't think. Maester Lewin is who I picked. Because Maesters do have some potions and capabilities like that, but I was thinking more of the mentor than the wizard stuff. And Lewin is a mentor to John and Ned, and I have some Starks on my team, so I feel like they would listen to Maester Lewin and like follow his advice because he is the one in Winterfell. So I felt like that was a slam dunk, and I still wanted the character to be a little old like Gandalf, and I didn't want to put like somebody else in that role. And when you get to some of the older ones like Maester Pycelle and stuff like that, it gets it gets a little like no. So I went with Lewin.
Pycelle's a fucking snake anyway. Fuck him.
I know. I was like, I can't pick him.
All my homies hate Pycelle.
Hell yeah. One of my favorite scenes in Game of Thrones is when Bronn and Tyrion bust into his room and just he's like, "Oh no, it wasn't me, it was the spider," and just, like sitting there in his underwear and his knickers, like freaking yeah. And they cut off his beard. Oh, I love it. I was like, yeah.
The one thing that always sticks out to me with Pycelle is like when he gets up and he's just like, what is he like? Crack his back that one time.
Yeah,
Oh, that's what sticks with me anytime I think of that.
Yeah, he's just a gross old man. Like, just
but you know that crack was so satisfying.
Oh, it probably was.
Probably made his day. I just picture that scene from Big Daddy. Where he's like, "What are you?" With his wrinkled skin and his old balls. Like, that's just what I picture for myself. All right. Back to me here. So I'll give my archer here too. There aren't many like archers by trade, I guess you would say, in Game of Thrones. It's basically Theon or my choice here, which is Ygritte, John's wildling little lover there. She could hit, the broadside of a barn from 200 yards away. She's a very good archer. And there was less than 0.0% chance of me having Theon Greyjoy on my team. So kind of by default, I went with no. Even though I'll give it to him, in the end, he kind of redeemed himself a little bit, but just comparatively and how much of a little shit he was for the first 4 seasons of the show, sorry.
Yeah, I don't have Ygritte. I did not even think of Theon. I was like, no. And I only have 2 names left, so I do want to just say this too. I thought of a fun idea right after we're done sharing fellowships real quick that I think would be fun. It won't take up a lot of time, but
sure.
did you have Ygritte at all?
I actually do. I do have Ygritte.
Oh,
so
okay.
I put Ygritte as kind of my Aragorn role. That's where I put her at. So I kind of see Aragorn's role as like the tracker, the hunter, like he's tracking
the ranger.
orcs. Yes, the ranger. So I thought Ygritte fit that role very well. She's obviously a wildling, so she's used to being out in the wilderness. She knows how to track an animal. She knows how, I'm sure that she would be able to track an army of orcs or some halflings across the landscapes of Rohan. So yeah, I put her as my hunter role, and I thought again it's like a kind of out of the box answer because again I immediately thought like Robb Stark or something, but I was like, you know what, I think Ygritte fits here. So yeah, that's who I picked, and I think I have 2 more. I think here. Yeah, my wizard and my dwarf. So we're on track, boys.
Cool.
Yeah,
I got 1, so I'll let you guys kind of rattle off before I go.
Okay. I'll share my Pippin role, which I have as Bran Stark. So I take Bran.
Walking or not walking, Bran Stark?
Both? I don't know. Like
3-eyed raven or no 3 eyes?
Yeah.
He starts off walking, still has the accent, still becomes a 3-eyed raven. Because the reason I picked him in the Pippin role is because Pippin will touch the Palantir and see some stuff, and I was relating that to Bran seeing stuff as the 3-eyed raven.
Warging,
so I went ahead and put that like comparing those 2 things together. So that's who I have. And also I think Merry and Pippin are very close, so having another Stark be the Pippin role when I have Arya as the Merry role just fit like a really slam dunk. It would also make sense why Aragorn's role, Ned Stark, would be so after Arya and Bran if they got kidnapped by orcs. It's his kids. He's going to get them. Like, that's how I kind of played it out.
It fits perfectly.
It does. Good stuff.
So
all right, Tej.
So for my wizard role, again, similar to you, Jordan, I kind of picked it more so as like a mentor, like the person who sets us off on our journey, right? And I picked Maester Aemon. That's who I picked from The Wall, because I thought he's very wise. He knows a lot of stuff. He was a Targaryen, so he was involved with a lot of like important history in Game of Thrones, which Gandalf also was in Lord of the Rings. And also because he's pretty much confirmed to be a dreamer. And so I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. For maybe people at home who don't know, some Targaryens have this kind of visions, and they call them dreamers. And so Maester Aemon is one of these dreamers who can kind of more or less peer into the future and or possible futures. So I thought that kind of fit that magic sort of role. Again, since we don't really have magic, that's like kind of close. And I think he would just be a good, like you said, mentor and guidance for the rest of my fellowship team.
He's great. I love Maester Aemon. He's like the opposite end of the spectrum from Pycelle. He's like gross old man, but just still the man.
Yeah. My other one I considered, which I thought was interesting, is Varys. I thought
that too.
Right?
I had Varys.
Cool.
Yeah, I did. I thought of for the same role. I was like,
same.
I ultimately couldn't trust him enough to put him in that
No,
role.
yeah.
Yeah.
The second you started doing something he didn't like, he would be convincing the rest
He's
of the
whispering to
fellowship.
Sauron, like, this is
Yeah.
what's going on, dude.
Yeah, yeah,
No
yeah.
thanks.
Uh, man, I wish I put Varys on my team now. All right, so I'll rattle off my last one here because it's kind of a hybrid of basically all the roles I've had so far of a little bit of the fighting, a little bit of the smarts, a little bit of the sort of level-headedness. Jorah Mormont. I think
Oh,
I love Jorah. He's obviously fiercely loyal, especially if he's romantically attracted to you, like we see with him and Danny.
that's why you need Danny as your ring bearer in that sense.
Yeah,
He'll be
there'll be
endlessly devoted.
nobody stopping us from getting to Mordor. Yeah,
It's like when they ask, like, why don't you just ride the eagles to Mordor? It'd be like, why didn't you just ride our dragons to Mordor?
yeah,
Like, come
yeah.
on.
Well, Danny was an interesting one because, like, I considered her a little bit, just not to be the ring bearer because we know she's highly corruptible as we saw
Yes.
in the show. But like, do you take her and then do you get her dragons too, or is it just Danny herself?
Yeah.
Like, it was an interesting thing, and I ended up just staying away from it. But yeah, give me old Jorah, love him.
I thought about him for my next role, the Boromir role, but I ultimately didn't pull the trigger on that. But he was up there.
He's great. All right, so that's my squad is complete. So I don't know who else you guys got out there.
We'll go ahead and have TJ share his. You have one left, right?
Yeah, I got one last one left, and it's my dwarf role. So, like I said, I considered Davos for this. I also considered Brienne for this because, like I said, my thinking on this was Gimli is kind of the impulsive one. He's the one that's ready to jump into battle, but he's also like fierce.
And my axe.
Exactly. Yeah. He's also fiercely loyal, and like he's very loyal. Like he goes with Aragon to the city of the dead or whatever that's called. And so for this role, I really thought this was the hardest one, honestly, for me to pick. I like really had a hard time with this one, but I landed on Gendry. I thought that Gendry kind of fit those qualities for me. I think that he would for sure jump into the fight, and I think he is very loyal. We see his loyalty kind of to Jon Snow towards the end when he like just met the dude. So yeah, I picked Gendry to fill out my squad here.
Nice. I love it. Love Gendry. Underrated fighter too.
And
George,
axe and big like hammer, it kind of fits.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very much. I was just gonna say that. Yeah, the Robert's hammer and the axe, they're just very much a parallel. Yeah.
I debated Gendry, but I just there's some characters that I was like, I would love to fit them in. I just couldn't like figure out where I was gonna put them. And my last role is the Boromir role. I went with Jaime Lannister. I almost went with Ned Stark just for the fun of Sean Bean and that Ned dies and all. Okay, but I went with Jaime Lannister because I feel like he would be the Lannister that would have a chance of being corrupted, but also in Game of Thrones throughout his journey, he becomes a hero.
Yeah.
And Boromir at the very end gives his life for Merry and Pippin as he's trying to save them. So I felt like that would be the best parallel for a Boromir would be Jaime. So I went with Jaime Lannister.
I think Jaime and Boromir are very, very parallel to each other. That's a really great. I kind of wish I picked that now because that's really good. Because I mean, like you mentioned earlier, Boromir is the son of Gondor. He's the son of the steward, and we see that Denethor is not a really chill dude, right? And a very similar relationship that we have with Jaime and Tywin Lannister, where dad's kind of ruthless and pushing the son. So I think that's fantastic. Really great read on that one.
Yeah, Boromir gave his life for Merry and Pippin, and Jaime gave his hand for Brienne. So that might be the most spot on pick of your whole team. I think actually.
Okay, so the fun idea I was having is if Gollum is following along,
I was
here.
thinking this too.
Who is the Gollum from Game of Thrones that you're putting onto this fellowship, or to throw a wrench into your fellowship, I guess?
Gosh. Do you, Jordan? You go first because I feel like you probably have somebody in mind.
I don't have one. I just thought of it and I was like, oh, I don't even know where to go with this. But because
if we're talking about throwing a rent, mine would probably be Varys, just because like of all the people who are definitely like, if you're picking somebody that you know is just gonna seed, chaos and unrest in your crew, you got to at least like him a little bit. And I love me some Varys, so he would probably be my monkey wrench character.
I think that gave me my answer because I'm gonna go Littlefinger.
Oh, geez, I couldn't bear it. I would kill him after the first day, man.
Right, but like Littlefinger, while he doesn't interact with Jon and Sam that much, but like just thinking of Aragorn role Ned Stark, like having to go up against Littlefinger Gollum, like, and this guy just following them the whole time, like trying to put his plan in motion.
Give the ring to me. Like, no, get away from me.
Exactly. Yeah, Littlefinger is where I'll go here. Peter Baelish.
I put it on my little finger.
He has rings too. Oh
True.
my god.
Honestly, that's the best one. Like, I really had to just think there. You probably saw my thinking face on, because Littlefinger was immediately where my mind went. But I think I had an epiphany. I'm choosing Ramsay Bolton, because he's just such a little shit, and Gollum's a little shit too. So I could totally see him just after the company constantly, just like screwing plans up, and at the very end he almost gets you right. So yeah, Ramsay Bolton's my Gollum for sure.
That's and they both have that like quick switch. They go from like the puppy dog eyes, like pretending to be all nice, to just like raging out. Yeah, that's a really good one.
Good all stuff. Right, so let's go ahead and read our fellowship once again, like the full thing, so that way people may have lost track as we're talking here. So I'll go first, and then I'm going to share if do I think I make it to Mordor, and I'll give my interpretation, I guess. But I have ring bearer Jon Snow, then I have Samwell, Ned Stark, Tyrion, Oberyn, Maester Luwin, Arya, Bran, Jaime Lannister, with Littlefinger Gollum throwing wrenches into this fellowship. And I think we would make it. I think we would make it. I think Jon Snow would throw the ring in Mount Doom. So I feel pretty good about getting there and succeeding.
Yeah, I feel like you've got enough like strong personalities in there that they basically almost drown out Littlefinger.
I tried to take the most like honorable people was my goal when I was doing this. I was like, I do not want any of these people to really be that corruptible.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So yeah, I would probably agree. I think your team makes it. Mine is my ring bearer was Ned. I got Tyrion, Davos, Bronn, Arya, Jorah, Ygritte, Podrick, and Samwell Tarly. And I do not think we are making it. I'm just going to be straight up with you. I don't think we are. I mean, I think there'd be a lot of infighting probably between my squad. There's a lot of, I feel like the last two of Podrick and Sam, as much as like we love him and stuff, we're not talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger making his way across Mordor here. So I think the combination of the infighting with the maybe not the strongest physical characters, I think there would be some snags. Like maybe some of the team still ends up getting there, but I don't think the whole team's getting there. We'll say that much.
The whole company does not make it.
Yeah, no, unfortunately. Like,
hey, it's rough. It's rough out there, dude. The road of Mordor is not an easy one. So my team, or my company, I guess you could say. So for my ring bearer, I have Podrick. For my wizard, I have Maester Aemond. For my hunter / tracker, I have Ygritte. For my warrior, I have Tormund. For my elf slash archer, I have Child of the Forest. For my dwarf character, I have Gendry, and my 3 companions, Tyrion, Arya, and Hodor. And I don't know. I think we're making it, fellas. I think we might make it. The way I'm seeing this in my mind is it comes down to Hodor and Podrick on Mount Doom. Hodor carries Podrick up into the mountain, and Ramsay Bolton comes out of nowhere. Hodor fights him off, and Podrick ends up throwing the ring. He's able to overcome the influence. So I think we'll make it. I might be a little biased because it's my team, but
no, I think you would too. I think you got a lot of strong wills on there. And now I'm just picturing Hodor like lifting Ramsay above his head and throwing him into the volcano.
Exactly,
Hodor!
That's what I mean, and it's game over with. I mean, I think we'll definitely lose Tormund for sure. He's not making it, just because he's gonna run into something crazy, and
he'd be Gandalf jumping at the or Durin, I guess would be the better from Rings of Power, who we just saw this last
jumping
week.
out
jumping towards the Balrog with his axe. That would be
and I don't think Maester Aemon's making it either. He'll set us on the right path, but my man cannot handle the cold like that, so I don't think he'll.
I was gonna say,
he ends up
common cold and just be
I was gonna say he loses to the Balrog. There is no like epic fight with that. There's no return as Aemon the White. He's dead. He's gone.
Just falls into the dead marshes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was a lot of fun. I want to say usually when we do drafts, we end up putting like who has the best team, and I think I'm gonna phrase it a little differently when I post it. I'm going to put like which team do you think gets to Mordor, completes their task like the fastest? And we'll put like the 3, and we'll let fans vote for which one they think gets to Mordor. And that person will claim a nice digital trophy, like nothing real. And one more question I have for you all before we wrap it up, though, is were there any names that popped into your head and you immediately said no?
Theon Greyjoy.
Joffrey.
Joffrey.
Theon, Joffrey.
Honestly,
go ahead, Ron.
Rob
what?
Stark.
Really? Why?
Yeah, he's just too dumb. I'm just gonna be honest with you. He was. Maybe that's a little harsh. He got so much thrown on him after Ned died, and he was just kind of flying by the seat of his pants. But like, every decision he made felt like the wrong one,
But not even, I would say not even dumb, but like even like bullheaded when like Caitlyn is telling him this is not the right way, and he's like, I'm doing it, right?
Yeah,
I'm getting married.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's a lot more from the book perspective. It feels like that bullheadedness that we got from him in the show is just turned up. Like it seemed like in the show they made more of an effort to make him a little less so, I guess, just
likable.
For lack of a better term.
Probably likable, because if you ever deal with a really stubborn person, it's annoying. So like they had to turn it down, I think.
For sure. So yeah, Rob was the other one that I was just like, nah, hard no.
Yeah, I had Daemon Targaryen because he's one of my favorite characters. Like, I love that character. So I wanted him on my squad because, like I said, I wanted to find a place for him because I love that character. But I couldn't do it. He's like so I can't trust him. I love the character, but he is just so untrustworthy. He is very much out for himself all the time. So yeah, Daemon was one like I wanted on my squad, but I was like, I can't have that energy in my fellowship. You know what I mean?
No, he would have been good for the Gollum role. Of the
he would have been a good Gollum for sure.
All right. Well, thank you, TJ, for coming on. Did you want to what I was gonna say, like pimp your stuff. Like, where can people find you? Plug. I couldn't find the word plug.
I
Sorry.
like pimp your stuff way
Yo,
better.
dog, I heard you like social media. So I give you a social media for your social media.
Oh, that's so good. I'm gonna say that from on our shows from now on. But you can find me on Twitter at the_Fat Thor right up here on the screen to hear all of my amazing, wonderful takes on comic books. You can also find me on my personal channel, Sons of Mjolnir, for comic book interviews, comic book deep dives. Our most recent one was with artist for the current Wolverine series, Martin Kokolo. And you can also find me over at Agents of Fandom. You'll see my face all over that place. I co-host a show, Comic Corner, every Thursday, going over news, reviews, and interviews. And I also am sometimes popping up on the Agatha All Along After show that you can catch on Wednesday, right after Agatha All Along, and also Penguin on every Monday. We're going to be reviewing and breaking down Penguin every Monday. So you can catch me on all those wonderful shows, all under Agents of Fandom. And also for my fantasy fans, this is the Fantasy Folk Podcast. You can also check out, I did reviews and features all about Rings of Power throughout the whole season. You can check out my reviews and breakdowns of every episode. I did a really cool Sauron and Tom Bombadil feature, going real deep and nerdy into the lore of those two. So come find me, people. I'm around. And thank you guys so much for having me on. This is absolutely so much fun. I cannot wait to do it again. Ron, we were honored to have you on our Rings of Power after show, but for sure going to have to figure something out to get all of us back together because this was awesome. Thank you guys.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Time and place, man. We're there.
And like Ron and I said before, we are using this to kind of segue into some of our Game of Thrones coverage. We have some ideas on what we're doing with that, but make sure that you keep an eye out for that. Yeah, at fantasyfolkpod on all of our social media is where you can follow us there. Anything else, Ron? Should we be plugging?
No, I think we're good.
All right. Well, thank you all for watching and listening. We'll catch you next week when we start diving into Westeros.